Hello there. I hope you're having a great weekend. I'm having a wonderful weekend, getting started, just preparing for what the Lord has for me for the days to come. I missed you while I was preparing, so I wanted to talk with you. And I am Deborah Lassiter, founder of DCL Ministries, the author of Beyond the Face of the Movies, as well as my new book coming out later this year titled The Women God Used. But something tells me you already knew that. The Women God Used, I'm really proud of this book. I picked unconventional women, or I should say Holy Spirit had me pick these unconventional women that had some strange methods, I'm going to say, with how they came to their purpose, discovering their destiny, and ultimately discovering themselves. One thing that I thought was so beautiful about my research and time with these particular women was when they finally figured out who God was in their life, when they finally decided to say yes to God, and rather than trying to get their own way, it is then that they actually discovered the best angles, the best way. The Lord blessed them with discernment, but it really was their choice to be obedient. And I think when they really started to assess their own actions within their life, that they were victorious. So anyway, this book is for really all people that are tenacious, all people that are okay with seeing a different perspective in order to reach their goals in life. So anyway, it's coming out later this year. Please look for it. It's going to be a fun, great book. Yes, it's titled The Women God Used, but really it's for all people. And it's really focusing a little bit on what I want to talk about today with you. I want to focus on the Israelites. The Israelites were 2 million people wandering in the desert for 40 years. I'd love to go into that, but I'm going to save that for another time. But the Israelites were led by Moses. Moses is a prophet amongst many other titles, but he spoke directly with the Lord, leading these 2 million people in the desert. As you remember, even if you've never read the Bible before, you know about Moses encountering the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the burning bush while he is in the desert with the Midianites. He meets his wife Zipporah, and of course they get married, and he encounters God, and God asks Moses to go back to Egypt, and he says to him, I want you to approach Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. So, of course, Moses goes back to Egypt. Finally, he gets the people, and he goes into the desert so they can finally get to Mount Sinai. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of backdrop so that you know where we're at. Another piece of information that's important to know right now is that when God brought these people into the desert, we have to keep in mind that it's at a time where there's a lot of polytheism going on, meaning there's just a lot of other nations that are serving many different gods. You have the fertility god, the sun god, the moon god. And we really want to be mindful of pantheism when we really think that everything's a god, the book god, the shoe god, So, well, I have to be honest, some women probably think there is a shoe god, but there's not. Anyway, God brought these people into the desert to worship him, as well as to make them distinct from other nations, so that when people looked in on the Israelites, they knew there is a God that's protecting these people. There's a God that's really guiding these people. By day, he's in a cloud. By night, he is in fire. So this is what's so gorgeous. So in order to set these people apart, in order to consecrate them, the Lord gave them laws. He gave them disciplines. He gave them instructions to follow so that they would be God's people. And so this is just the beautiful covenant that the Lord did. And this is in attachment to the promise with Abraham. So anyway, I want to focus on God dwelling with the people in the desert. Many of you out there, you are in a dry point in your life. You are struggling. Maybe all the coping mechanisms that you used to lean on, they're not working anymore, and you're feeling that you're in this dry period of your life. So what's so interesting is that the Israelites are also in this dry period. They're in the desert, and they've just come out of bondage, and the Lord sets up these instructions, these rules, these regulations for them to follow. Part of this was God had instructed Moses to build the tabernacle, and the tabernacle was a replica of what actually is in heaven. And what's so beautiful about the tabernacle is God dwelled with the people. God always wants to commune with us. He always wants to communicate with us. He always wants to be with us. Modern day Christians, we know that the Holy Spirit dwells inside of us, and that is a part of some of that echo effect, I'm going to say, that's within the Bible. But the tabernacle was so gorgeous. We have the tent of meeting, we have the outer court, the inner court, the holy place, and then we have the Holy of Holies, where God was actually in the Ark of the Covenant. He sat on the Ark of the Covenant, and it's called the mercy seat. So this is what's so beautiful. Now, God had the Israelites pay atonement for their sin. So the meaning of that is, you can imagine 2 million people in the desert. You have all these different tribes. These are the 12 children of Jacob. And you have all these different tribes. They've grown. God said, be fruitful and multiply. So they multiplied. And you have these large tribes, and they're arguing with each other. You can imagine, like, you came into my tent in the morning and woke me up, or you're arguing with my wife. I saw you sleeping with my daughter. I mean, you can imagine this is actually what we have happening in our lives today. So God set up something where each person had an atonement for their sin. There was 5 offerings that an Israelite could give. 3 of them were optional. So you have like a grain offering, a dove offering, and God's so merciful because depending on your budget, he always had something that you could offer, even if you were not wealthy within your tribe. But there was 2 offerings that were mandatory, and that's actually what I want to focus on today. We'll start with the first offering, which is the purification offering. The purification offering is very interesting to me because it really got me thinking. It had to do with your actions towards another person, whether you wronged another person, but whether you did it intentionally or unintentionally. I know a lot of times in our lives, we might say, I didn't know that I hurt that person, or I'm not going to apologize because I'm not going to apologize for anything that I didn't do. But you know what? When we really think about our intentions, when we think about in that moment, maybe we're not feeling that great this morning and someone comes into the office and they say good morning, or maybe they're just trying to strike up a conversation with you and you're being curt with them. Maybe you say something really mean to them. We know our intentions when we do things. We might not know that we hurt that person. We might not know that they took it wrong, but really through communication, we can find out that. However, when we assess our own actions, when we take a little bit of an inventory of what it is we were feeling at the time, thinking at the time, perhaps we got in an argument the night before with a spouse and brought that sort of behavior into the workplace, and then we're treating people poorly due to that. We know our intentions. So this had to do with the purification offering. That was mandatory, and I love that because God is focusing on the heart of man. He's making a person really think about what you're saying, what you're doing, how you're interacting with people on a daily basis, and that if you came to a point, maybe it was unintentional, but God says, okay, well, now that we know that it was unintentional, I still need to purify you from the idea that you did sin against another person. You did do something, whether it was intentional or unintentional, almost became irrelevant because now it became about your intention, the heart, the heart posture you were in at that moment. So we really want to be mindful of that. And so God says, you know what, now that we've observed that, you have assessed your behavior, we're going to purify you from that. So going forward, I really want you to start focusing on whether your actions are intentional or unintentional. What's your motive when you're doing certain things? I know right now, the workplace is quite competitive and you could be manipulating your way to the top. You could be, doing so many things, stealing a promotion from someone and thinking, well, you know what, that's my promotion. They should have just done it quicker than I did. But keep in mind, what's your intention? The second mandatory offering, which is also very, very interesting, is the Reformation offering. So you have 5 offerings again. 3 are optional, 2 are mandatory. The second of the mandatory offering is the Reformation offering. Now, and again, this offering also has to do with whether your intentions to someone, did you do it on purpose or did you not think about it? Has to do with your intention of the heart. But then the nice little key in this is, did you make an amends? Oh, I love it. God is really doing something in the inner heart of a person when he asks, you know what? Did you actually make an amends after you found out that you did do something to someone else? Many times we sit there and we know that we've hurt someone, but we never go back to apologize. And it might be a little deep for what it is today, but did you do a worldly apology or a godly one? A worldly apology sometimes is just, I said sorry because I just didn't want to argue anymore. And maybe sometimes you say sorry, but you don't know what you're saying sorry for. I don't know. People can feel that. People can feel when there's remorse there, when there's true remorse. And true remorse takes God to know who you are, to understand that you really hurt somebody to the core, to understand that every time that you do something to someone else, that there's a residue that comes off, that person also, if they're not in the right heart posture, can take that on and do something bad to someone else. We really have to think about what it is that we're doing. And then, of course, God layers it with, even if it was unintentional, did you think about it? Did you do self-inventory? And did you go back and did you make an amends? What's so interesting about these two mandatory offerings is during the time of the Old Testament, Aaron, which is the high priest, he's the first high priest, he's the brother of Moses, he could only go and atone for the Israelites' sins once a year. And I think that's beautiful because even if you're struggling and you're having a hard time apologizing to someone, you have a whole year to do it. I know some of you out there are thinking right now, and maybe you've been in an argument with your mother for 10 years. Wow, it's a long time. And maybe right now you're having disputes at the workplace, and maybe right now you're having disputes with your spouse. Maybe right now it's just so hard for you to make amends with your children, where we hold things, we nurture pain. Sometimes we nurture it longer than we should. And God's saying, wow, with the Israelites, you have a whole year to make amends. You have a whole year to assess yourself. Keep in mind, we can't change other people, but we can always bring to the table what we know we've done. We can sincerely apologize, a heartfelt apology, one that someone would feel. I took a course one time about peacemaking, and they said, are you peacemaking, peace breaking, or peace faking? And a lot of times, I found, wow, I don't know, was I peacemaking? Was I really making peace, or was I peace faking? Was I faking it? Was I saying that I still was hurt? Oh, hi, good morning, mwah, mwah, God bless. And then all of a sudden you're still peace faking, and under your breath you're saying, I still don't like them? Or were you peace breaking? Were you breaking the peace? Keep in mind, sometimes, in order to get things moving in our own lives, we really have to know ourselves well enough and be honest with ourselves. So that's my encouragement for you this week. Assess yourself. Do some self-inventory. Really take hold of what it is that you are doing to other people. Is it intentional? Is it unintentional? And that's okay, because sometimes we do things and we don't realize that we're doing them. But once you figured it out, are you making amends? Oh, I pray for you this week. I pray that whatever problems, whatever arguments, whatever things that you're holding on the inside, that you would give it to the Lord, that you would pray to the Lord, not only to see yourself and what role you play, but to also to go with a heartfelt apology. And I bet you many people that you owe an apology also owe a few of their own. So keep that in mind. Bring it to the Lord, and I will see you next week. God bless.